You can save someone from drowning. And my daddy's a minister here in D.C., he really is. And he says, son, if your sermon is good, sometimes you can save a man's soul. But I've never really been the type of person to ask for help, but if I needed some saving, y'all trust me, you would know. But you see, I won't be sending out an SOS message or interrupting your regularly scheduled programs. I won't be sending you an email, a text message, a voicemail, or anything now. They do it on Instagram. But instead, you'll find me on a stage, usually with a piece of paper in my left and a pen in my right hand. My mouth will be wide open and a vein poking out of my neck. My eyes will be shut tight as I focus on every single breath, just to make sure that my lungs have enough capacity to create words that defy the laws of gravity and swirl up into a vortex of knowledge, causing supernatural catastrophes. And while this poem ain't no tragedy, there just might be some casualties if you're not prepared to listen to me. It's true. Because I do this for a reason. You see, I write this for those of you with terminal diseases. I write this for those of you who want to have sex, but your parents are preachers. It's the first time I got to laugh on that one. I write this for those of you who want to learn, but you lack good mentors and teachers. I write this for those of you who love your mama, but all she does is scream at you. I write this for those of you who miss your daddy, although his eyes ain't never seen you. I write this for those of you who miss getting a good night's sleep after hearing your grandma sing a sweet song to you. I write this for those of you who forget their poem in the middle, then you just keep going on through. I write this for those of you who want to earn love but don't know that it's already given to you. I write this for those of you whose sexuality is unacceptable until it's received society's stamp of approval. I write this for you. I write this for those of you who don't have an answer, yet one is always being forced from you. Y'all, sometimes saying I don't know is a lie, but sometimes saying I don't know is the truth. I write this for you. Been battling poetry until my ink bleeds black and blue. I'm just a superhero, y'all, with a cape made of metaphors, trying to use my words to simply save you. And yes, at some point in time, I may need a little bit of saving. But you see, I've been investing and paying into my bank of poetry account for a little while now, so I can afford a little misbehaving. But I'm not in the game of playing with people's minds. And yes, y'all, some of the words in my poems do rhyme, but honestly, I've been doing it for a while, so it just happens sometimes. And yes, the memorization will make a performance good. But I promise you, I will pick up and read from a book every single time to make sure that my messages never get misunderstood. Because I said before, I do this for a reason. And y'all, I promise you, this gift is not temporary. It does not change with the seasons. That means I can spit fire while the sky is hot, or I can cool it down while the water's freezing. And if words having power isn't something that you believe in, then I will spit on my fingertips, reach out my palm, and turn this conference into an altar call, and I'll start saving all of you heathens. Because you see, I care about your futures. I care about your destinies. I care about your legacies, and honestly, I want y'all to remember my name. I want you to look up in the sky, and I want y'all to say this with me. Is that a bird? Yes, is that a plane? And I reach down screaming, no, it is poetry, and I'm a poet, a social agent of change, piecing letters to words and words to sentences and sentences to sounds, leaping over metaphors in one single bound, powerful enough to spark protests for equality in ghetto communities. Talk slicker than politicians that create policies that grant rich folks immunities. You see, I didn't choose to be saved by poetry. Y'all, honestly, poetry chose me. Poetry crept up inside my mama's womb, and poetry started tickling me. It's true. I've been speaking in rhythmic patterns since I was probably in grade 3, and I'm going to continue till I'm through. So who am I? Y'all, I'm just Tony Keith, a simple superhero, and I'm so glad to be here with you. Thank you. I see snaps in the back. Yay, snaps! So, y'all are probably wondering, how the heck did I get here, right? I am not a social worker, for the record. I'm not. I'm an educator. I consider myself a poet, an educator, and a nerd. You can probably read that in some bio. So I celebrated my 31st birthday last Tuesday. All right. Yeah, thanks. And so I was speaking with a group of high school students the other day. We were doing a performance workshop. And I said, wow, like somehow in 30 years, I've managed to get all these performances. I've traveled around the world. I've danced with Desmond Tutu on his 80th birthday. I've done all these really weird things, but most people wouldn't know what my original story is. So I grew up here in DC. This is my home. I'm a native, love it. My father was addicted to crack cocaine for maybe 10, if not a little 12 years. He's fully recovered. He's awesome. He's my best friend now. My mother, so of course, was a single parent, right? I grew up, me and my sister, fairly low income. I have that story. However, somehow I've been able to, I don't know, like navigate life in a really awesome way. And sometimes it's just a matter of, are you all familiar with the philosophy called Ubuntu? Yeah, I'm an educator, so I'm going to ask what Ubuntu is. Anybody know? Then I will share. So this is what it is. So the long story short, Ubuntu just simply says, I am because you are. So everybody say, I am because you are. All right, so the philosophy simply is this. I was speaking with Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I'm not playing. I'm not making a story up. And he called me a rapper. He said, you're a rapper. I'm like, I'm not a rapper. I'm a poet, but we'll go with it. So he says, Tony, there are moments when you can be walking. You're on the beach. Everybody be on the beach. We're on the beach. And you're walking, and there's sand. And you're walking on the sand, and then you begin to step into the water, right? You keep walking and walking. Eventually, water is up above your head. And you keep walking, and then you're on the ocean floor. You keep walking and walking, you end up coming out, and you're on another piece of land. And what he said was the philosophy of Ubuntu says that if you are over here, you may not realize you're connected to something over here because you can't see it. And so I think about hope in that way, and that's exactly probably how I ended up here. This is just Ubuntu. I volunteered with the DC Youth Poetry Slam team, and I was, and I'm going to get to another poem in a minute, I'm sorry. Volunteered with the DC Youth Poetry Slam team, and they were performing at this event with the Center for Campus Progress. So I go support my youth, because I love seeing them perform. And then at that event, there was a guy hosting it, and he says, hey, we're going to be performing at Lafayette Park for like a DC voters' rights rally, and we're looking for a performance poet. And I just said, okay, I'll do it. So I walk up, see this guy. He's never met me before, never heard me perform, didn't know anything. And he just said, okay, we'll put you on. So, okay. So next thing you know, I'm sitting on the stage with the mayor of D.C. at the time, Eleanor Holmes Norton, a bunch of fancy people, and I'm performing poetry. I get off that stage, and then up to me comes a really nice woman. Her name is Patricia Cannon. She works for the National Cathedral. And she says, yeah, I do this. Well, she didn't say it like that. That's my attitude. She said, every year the Washington National Cathedral hosts a Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. We would love for you to be one of the performance artists. I thought she was joking. I was like, oh, you're one of those people who come up to people like me and say you want to do awesome things, and then you just never hear from them again. So I took her card. I didn't have any cards. I wrote it down on a cheesy piece of paper, and that was that. I ended up performing at the Washington National Cathedral. And then somehow, I think her name is Kelly. Where are you, Kelly? Are you in here? There was someone who attended that event who saw me perform, and then somehow that's how I ended up here with you. So long story short, that's Ubuntu. I didn't see this coming. I was just volunteering with young people because that's what I love to do. So with that, I'm actually just going to transition to a poem. I don't have a good transition, so I'm just going to do it. Although, yeah, I do. So I currently work for UDC's community college, and I'm an academic advisor. And I also teach adjunct faculty member, but besides that. So this is the first time I ever worked, honestly, in mostly sort of adult population. And most of my students are low income, first generation, et cetera, et cetera. And so they tend to come to my office with lots of stuff. I just want to tell them what classes to take, maybe help them with some learning skills. I get everything from this is my parole record to, you know, I'm just, it's like, what classes do you want to take in the fall? So, the process of writing, I get inspired by people's stories. And so this is the story of one of my students. And it's called, I call this poem Mother of Seven. So this is inspired by her story. Mother of seven, strong back and weather worn, her face is a patchwork smile. Pieces of her soul torn and gathered together in a pattern of resilience, both beautiful and ugly, in between the lines of brilliance. She will not frown today. She will not permit anything to untie her lips, granting freedom to words stuck in bondage on tongue's tip until she reaches my office door. The moment her foot steps inside, tears fall, that sounds much better, tears fall from her eyes. She says, Tony, that man hit my baby. I cannot believe that man hit my child. It appears that number 7 met the fist of her father, while 5 and 6 watched helplessly. 3 and 4 were with grandma, 1 and 2 in aftercare, but all 7 have become gray strands in her hair. She twists them into locks, hoping to keep them safe, but the moment she let her roots down to breathe, number 7 got knocked down to her knees. Fire red cheeks, blue flamed bruises, he even blacked her beautiful brown eyes. Mr. Keith, my baby could have died. Mother of 7. She loves hard but hates soft, which means number 7's father will probably never really meet the law because he stuck around when 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 fathers fell off. He loved her when being beautiful meant making babies. He told her that to be fruitful is what made her a lady. So she granted him entry while she kept herself waiting. She stayed in the back. She laid on her back, carried children on her back, breaking her back. Number 7 is bleeding, and yet she wants him back. And she'll probably take him back. And he'll comfort her with dry apologies and empty I love yous and pitiful I'm so sorries. Mother of 7 is also a full-time student. Managing textbooks and 7 children is certainly a balancing act worth noting. She gracefully walks the fence of sanity and says that it's her degree that keeps her going. She just came to be advised for what classes to take in the fall. I'm just her academic advisor. Pause. Tony. Only press play once you've chosen the right words. Remember, she's not here for answers. She actually just needs to be heard. So listen with intent and be authentic in your eyes. And if compelled to do so, it's perfectly okay for you to cry because she needs to see you human like her. No blame, no judgment, no questionings of her worth. This is not your job, but this has somehow become part of your work. She needs this. She hurts. Play. Mother of 7. Here's some courses I suggest you take. 1, biology. Remember that tears are a mixture of mucus, water, and oil, which means they can protect your vision, keep your sight clear, and make it easy for you to adjust your focus. So it's okay right now for you to cry. 2, criminology. Love is not heartbreak on probation. You need to release those shackles and place him in bondage. It's no longer acceptable for you to keep your heart hostage. You need to press charges. He needs to do his time. Number 3, psychology. Mother of 7, don't blame yourself. 1 and 2, don't feel neglected. 3 and 4, know about your night shift. 5 and 6 can actually take care of each other. And number 7 is stronger than you think she is. She has your eyes. 4, art. You gotta forgive him. Remember that love is merely just a gift for him. 5 or 6, whatever I'm on. Theology. Gather up your blood and tell them to arm themselves with love. Tell them that there are moments when God does not seem like he's present, but assure them of their divine purpose anyway. 7, gender studies. Tell number 7 that she is beautiful. She needs to understand that while her face is healing, she has to associate her body with having a good feeling because one day that mirror may crack and a man will try to create her reflection. Mother of 7. Please understand that I cannot take this with me when you go. And it's not because I can't empathize or because I'm insensitive, but it's because I tend to carry the weight of the world with me. Look, I just want to advise. Thank you. Oh, wow. Woo. Wow. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And a secret to that poem is I actually wrote that for y'all. When I was asked to perform at a conference for social workers, I was like, I'm not a social worker. I am an educator, and I realized that helping people through life, whether it's attaining a degree, whether it's dealing with baby daddy, whatever it is, that has become a part of my work. And so while I'm not a social worker, I want to make that very clear. You all have a profession and degrees, and you do what you do. I have somehow this passion, this calling to help people. And so I've learned that I can do that through education and through poetry. So the wonderful thing about Mother of 7, and this makes me think about hope, is I don't know how families, communities, countries who are dealing with all this stuff still manage to pursue. That is awesome. How can a woman whose child just got beaten bloody come in and want to, what classes should I take? I'm like, baby, you need to go to the police. Like, you need to, this is not an academic advising moment. This is major. So I'm inspired by my students every single day. And so mother of 7, she's doing fantastic. Her daughter's healing in a wonderful way. She's receiving help. She actually does have a social worker. And every, I think, other Friday or something, I actually have to sign this little form saying that she's regularly going to classes. So I feel like I'm a part of her healing process, and it's really been awesome. So I just want to say I applaud you all for the work you do, because I would imagine, how many of you go home thinking about some of the families, people that you're working with? Yeah, that's tough. As an educator, I do it too. And I don't even know what the best strategy is, but I write it out. I get home and I write it out. Because when I go home, I want that to feel like my place of refuge. So I hope you all get some refuge. Okay, so this next poem, so this is, I actually had to humble myself when I wrote this poem, because I have had, I think I mentioned at the mere age of 30, the opportunity to do a whole lot of things that most people with a background like me have not had the privilege of doing. And so one of them is performing poetry. And recently, I've been getting booked. Like, I've been making money performing. Now, yeah. And I am okay with that. For those of you who know, probably in your field, and especially in education, we are not the highest paid folks, and we do a lot of the work. And it's the same thing as an artist, and so people don't want to pay poets. Like, they're like, please, do your whatever. A very close friend of mine, his name is Jason Reynolds. He's a published author. He's also a poet from DC. He is quite amazing. But Jason was living in Brooklyn, New York, and if you want to be an artist and struggling, go to New York, right? And Jason and I were on the phone, he's like, Tone, this is really his voice, Tone, I'm so tired of struggling, man. I'm tired of being a starving artist. I'm tired. I just want to make money or make a living doing what I love to do. He's like, I don't want to be extremely wealthy. I just want to live. I want to not eat tuna, right? By choice. So I said, okay. So anyway, so long story short, Jason now has this incredible book deal, and he is very well paid at the moment. And so he called me one day and he was like, Tony, I'm scared. He was like, I don't want to be that person who becomes like sort of like perfect at his craft, and I become egotistical and I lose my humility for this work. He's like, I just want to stay grounded in the art. And so I wrote this poem for Jason, and it's called Starving Artist. I am a poet afraid to publish. I'm not necessarily sure why, but I'm worried about seeing my words printed in a book and on the back of all these blurbs like, this is a #1 bestseller. This is a must read. What a wonderful account of an artist's words. I actually think it's absurd for some to only use their art for profit. And I'm not trying to justify the lifestyle of a starving artist, but I feel like if art really is your gift, then starving should at some point be a part of it. I feel like there should be some pangs in the pit of your stomach when your notebooks are empty and ain't no more ink left in your pen. When you aren't changing lives and your paper is thin. And as I said before, y'all, I recognize that at some point, my economic reality may rely on my poetic balladry, and I'm not sure that my stuff is as good as I think it is, but I know that I'm no longer willing to sell my soul just to write some fallacies. And y'all, I have made money writing poems at the wishes of others. I have written wedding poems, birthday poems, poems about anniversaries, poems that spice up other people's love lives, and y'all, sometimes I feel dirty. I do. And used and confused about whether they actually heard me. Sometimes I wish I could turn down the volume on some of my words and transform my performances into conversations where I could just be Tony Keith, the educator, the poet, and the nerd. Because I want to be known as that artsy-fartsy intellect who believed that there was power in his words. And that I not only took responsibility for what I said, but I took responsibility for those that heard, whether or not I made them mad or I convinced them to change the world. Let them know that sometimes I got tired. And y'all, sometimes I got weary, but I kept on writing even when my vision was blurry, even when I couldn't see what was in front of me, even when people told me I needed to sit still. They say, Tony, grass never grows under your feet. And I say, look, Ma, Grandma, Pop, that's because I'm way too busy climbing uphill. I tell them I didn't have time to rest until the rest of my poems are written, but I can't stop writing, so none of my poems have endings, just transitions between new beginnings, and space savers while refilling the ink in my pen again, or moments when I need to stop, sleep, and dream just to recharge my system, or moments when I need to set my pen on record and just listen. Listen. I'm trying to think myself through a literary breakthrough, break down walls of bondage with poetic correspondence and make other people feel uncomfortable. Make their spirits feel unsettled while my feet keep pushing on these pedals because I've got no choice but to keep pushing through. Y'all, like many of you, I'm doing what I'm called to do. And if you're open to receiving, the next call may be for you, but if you don't answer, don't you worry. I got agency and I collect when the payment is due. And granted, I've got a couple of degrees and my bank account probably won't go in the red if I spend a couple of pennies, but I've only got 2 cents to my name. And y'all, the life that I'm trying to live actually does require change, but like you, I've got bills. So I guess I'm gonna have to keep writing until my soul gets saturated, and I hope that my wallet gets filled. And some people say, Tony, don't you worry, because it's faith that'll get you through. Well, if that's the case, then right now, faith, I invoke you as my muse. Faith, I invoke you as my power of attorney. Faith, I want you to take over for me when I can't take over for myself. Faith, I want you to take over for me when my ego can no longer control my wealth. Faith, I don't want you to be afraid to unplug my microphone and knock all my notebooks off the shelf. Faith, don't be afraid to let me flatline. Let me lay there till my heart gets back to beating at a humble grind. Resuscitate the power of God back into my lungs and let me create new poems, pure and simple ones. Poems about failure and poems about victory. Poems that rhyme occasionally. Poems that resist artistic prisons and poems that enforce a pen can be a lethal system. Y'all, I'm a poet afraid to publish. But I guess I'm gonna have to keep publishing on these stages and earn some kind of living, as I usually do on free open mic wages. Thank you. Let's see the snap. Have any of you ever read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? That book is awesome. And I read it just about once a year. Whenever I get to these moments, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And so that poem keeps me on track. I would imagine, like many of you, y'all are doing, this is your work, like you're passionate about this stuff. Some of us feel like we're called to do it. And so there's a moment when we just gotta accept it. Like I was honestly, my bachelor's degree is in communication. Y'all know what I was supposed to do? The plan was to get my bachelor's degree in communication, go work for like a PR firm and represent celebrities. I was gonna like make a whole lot of money, like representing like a sports agency or like a fancy, yeah, I do academic advising. And I'm a poet. But there's a moment when you just gotta accept the call and you have to follow the signs. If you're being led in a specific direction, that's just where you go. It so happened that when I graduated from undergrad, I went to the University of Maryland College Park, go Terps. Okay, some of y'all, woo! I lost my train of thought. Oh, so I was working at a civil rights agency for the Department of Agriculture. And I was like doing newsletters and website stuff, but I was working in a civil rights office. Hear that. Then I had an internship doing marketing for a nonprofit organization that worked with battered and abused women in Prince George's County, Maryland. Right. Then I ended up working for the National League of Cities, which is a municipal association located here in DC. And I was working for a department called the Institute for Youth Education and Families. I was just, again, writing news articles, contacting municipal leaders, doing stuff. Oh, what are you doing on behalf of children and families? Again, children, families, battered and abused women, civil rights. I've been surrounded by these issues my entire life. And realized that it wasn't the PR part about it, it was the issues that I cared about. So that's sort of how I ended up completely getting out of the whole business thing, and now I'm a poet, I'm an educator, you know, and I'm happy. Yeah, so do whatever you want to do with that. All right, I don't even know what my time is. I'll probably do one more poem, and then I'll let you all be on your way. This last piece is actually the poem I performed at the Washington National Cathedral. The difference will be, however, when the cathedral asked me to perform, I did not realize, but the space where I performed, the actual cathedral, was one of the last places where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a sermon. And this sermon was entitled, I think, The Great Awakening or something about that. And they said, Tony, we want you to incorporate the voice of Dr. King along with your poetry. So I don't have the voice of Dr. King here with me today, so we're going to wing it. But it's a poem that's basically, I have a friend, everything is a story for me, who called me one day, and it was one of those, Tony, my life sucks, I'm bad at this, I hate this, I'm not good at this, I'm broke, I can't do, like it was, he was beating himself up. And I was like, dude, you've gotta stop. Like, you've gotta recognize, despite all of that, you are awesome anyway. So everybody that's in here, if you are able, pat yourself on the back real quick. It's true, and if you can, reach over and pat somebody else on the back. It's true. We need to do that sometimes. The work we do can beat us up and we will feel like we are just like incapable, but y'all, we are amazing. The stuff that the human race and what we're capable of doing is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I made up a word. Which is something humans can do. So, and I'm a poet, so I make up words all the time. So this is one of those poems where I'm like, despite whatever you are going through, whether it's you, whether it's the families, communities, neighborhoods that you're working with, understand that you are awesome and so are they, regardless of what's happening, okay? So this is my awesome poem. This is for me and for all of you. We fear what we love. Being awesome is a monster inside closets, watching us sleep, stealing our dreams in the dark, and when we wake, we forget how amazing we could be if we just turn the lights on. If we just somehow pull the cover from under our eyes, placed our feet on the ground, and boldly proclaim that we are not afraid of greatness. That no matter how many nights we shiver, scared of our own success, we will at some point get a full night's rest and we will rise with the sun. And like the sun, we will be bright and blinding and bold and hot and huge. And people will need us to survive the cold and the night. And we will awaken as warriors of weary, as soldiers of failure, as griots of fate, armed with weapons of mass construction. We will build ourselves a fortress of power, protecting ourselves from hating to be loved and our capacity to be godlike and our right to be present, and our calling to be parents to offsprings of our victories and ancestors to heartbreak and loneliness and empty pockets and grumbling bellies and confusion and altered reflections. And we will no longer hold our pillows too tight at night wishing it were a warm body or a healthy diagnosis or a phone call from daddy or a note that says, I love you, from the person you actually want to love you. And we will awaken with muscles up on our shoulders that are strong enough to hold the world up. When people need us to hold the world up because they're tired of holding the world up. And we will awaken with our voices in harmony and pitch that makes a whisper seem like a rocket ship and a rocket ship sound like I miss you. And we will tiptoe down hallways, making footprints feel like earthquakes. And we will awaken all those sleeping, all those afraid to be brilliant, all those afraid to be acknowledged for daring to be different, for those who run when they should stand, for those who hush when they should command, for those who need to realize that you cannot hide in the light. It sticks to you like brown does on my skin, like sap from trees rooted in sweet soil. You need to see that you are a star. No, literally, I see you in the sky, defying laws of space-time and gravity because humans are not supposed to fly, but you glide like the first leaf in autumn. Your silhouette struts in daylight and dances with the moon. You are part of a collective, a critical mass of intellectuals governed by divine knowledge, which means you are meant to be here with a purpose. Just like I am meant to be here with a purpose. Y'all, we are purposefully meant to be here so that the sick can become a healer, so that the timid can become a leader, so that the weary can become a teacher, and so that the boogeyman can become a poet. Thank you.